Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at Glarb Calamity's Augur in Cedh. This deck wins by using a turbo combo with Doomsday or Thassa's Oracle with Demonic Consultation in order to get a winning off having no cards in the library. Take a look at Glarb. It's 1 black, 1 green, and 1 blue. For a Frog Wizard Noble with Death Touch, that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may play lands and cast spells of mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library, and you can also tap him to Surveil 2. So this commander allows us to get a ton of value from the top of our library. We've been manipulating the top of our library a lot, and we're actually going to be using a card called Doomsday, which gets basically our library to the last 5 cards. And we're going to use Glarb's ability to cast spells from the top and play lands from the top in order to get a win. But this is my copy of Glarb, the alternate art, and the art that I drew with an infinite token. So let's look at the combo first, see what it does and how do we do it, so we can look at the rest of the deck. So first of all, we're going to be casting Doomsday. It says for 3 black, you can search the library and graveyard for 5 cards of your choice and remove the rest from the game. Put the chosen cards on top in any order you choose. You lose half your life rounded up. So with Glarb on the battlefield, we're going to be casting Doomsday. So in order to get the win with just Doomsday, all we need is Glarb on the battlefield. So if you have access to 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 black, and you can cast Glarb, and you can cast Doomsday on top of Glarb, you're able to win the game. Or if you already have Glarb on the battlefield, you can cast Doomsday and win the game off of that. But how are we going to do that? What's the win condition? So we're going to go with the top 5 being like this. So we're going to cast Gush for free off of the top, bouncing 2 islands that we have that we control to our owner's hands. These are going to go back to our hand, and we use them to pay for Doomsday instead of paying Gush's mana cost. So basically it's a free spell, and we're going to draw 2 cards. What we're going to draw is a Thassa's Oracle and a Lotus Petal. So basically we also need to, before starting this win line, I forgot to mention, we need to have our land slot open for the turn. We need to be able to play a land for the turn in order to win with this. So Thassa's Oracle says for 2 blue, it's a 1/3. You can when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on the top, and the rest on the bottom in any random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So basically, we just need to have no cards in our library, or 1, in order to win the game off of Thassa's Oracle. And we're also going to have Lotus Petal to give us a free mana. So with that being said, the rest of our library at the top is going to be a Mana Confluence, which is the land for turn that we could play with Glarb. So we're going to play Mana Confluence as a land for turn. And then our last card is going to be a Deadly Relic, which we control Glarb. So we're going to exile any creature on the board. We don't cast Deadly Relic until we play Mana Confluence for the land for turn. Then we play Lotus Petal, tapping it, sacking it, going to the graveyard to get a mana. We use the mana from the land for turn in order to get a blue. Cast Thassa's Oracle with Deadly Relic on top to exile a creature. The enter the battlefield effect will resolve, and you will win the game because you have no cards in your library. So that is basically our Doomsday win line. Our win condition for the whole deck is looking for Doomsday, getting Doomsday out with tutors, and trying to get this card out with Glarb on the battlefield because it's a perfect win condition, and it is interactable. You will need interaction to protect this. Anytime you cast Doomsday, your opponents might cast counter spells, or they might hold up interaction for the Thassa's Oracle, or the Deadly Relic, or even for the Gush. You have to worry about people having cards that prevent you from playing free spells. If anyone has any cards that prevent you from playing free spells, then that means Gush is going to be very, very hard to play, and will make this combo actually very difficult. So with that being said, we're going to go into the rest of the deck, starting off with interaction. So we got Ravenous Trap. If an opponent had 3 more cards put into his or her graveyard from anywhere this turn, I may pay 0 rather than Ravenous traps mana cost, and exiles all cards from target player's graveyard. This is good graveyard hate for other graveyard decks. Commandeer, you may remove 2 blue cards in your hand from the game rather than pay its cost. And you gain control of target non-creature spell, and you may choose new targets for it. And if that spell is an artifact or enchantment, the permanent comes into play under your control. This is to basically fizzle out anyone's interaction when they're trying to mess with our Doomsday combo. Same thing with Hydroelectric Specimen. It's a 3 mana 1/4 weird with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you may change the target of target instant or sorcery spell with a single target to Hydroelectric Specimen. So if anyone's trying to interact with Glarb in any way and take him out with removal, as people will probably do to get rid of the combo, you can flash in Hydroelectric Specimen to save him. This is Urtai Resurrected, 2 colorless, 1 blue, and 1 black for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Human Wizard, 3/2 with flash. And when he enters, you choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability, its controller draws a card. And it also says destroy another target creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. This is just very versatile and also be able to be played off the top of our deck with Glarb. Subtlety. This is a elemental incarnation. It's a 4 mana 3/3 with flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, you could choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So this is creature interaction for us. Whenever an opponent plays a good creature that's able to interact with our board or is just causing us a lot of trouble, we'll play Subtlety, and most of the time we're going to evoke it out by exiling a blue card from our hand. It is essentially free interaction, but I'd say this card is also very good because, like I said, with Glarb, you're able to play this with from the top of your library. Snuff Out, 4 mana for an instant. If you control a swamp, you could pay 4 life instead of paying Snuff Out's mana cost to destroy a non-black creature. Can't be generated. Just good removal. Force of Will, you could pay a life and remove a blue card from your hand. You can remove a blue card in your hand from the game instead of playing Force of Will's casting cost. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Counter target spell. So this is just a free counter spell. Mind Break Trap, 4 mana for a trap. It's an instant. If an opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn, you can pay 0 rather than pay its cost. You can exile any number of target spells. This is also a very good interaction piece. Fel the Profane, 4 mana, destroy target creature or planeswalker, just more interaction. Swan Song, counter spell. Force of Vigor. If it's not your turn, you can exile a green card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost to destroy up to 2 artifacts or enchantments. This is a very good card. Counterbalance, when an opponent plays a spell, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you do, counter that spell if it has the same converted mana cost as the revealed card. This is going to be very good with Glarb because we're manipulating the top of our library with Surveil, and we can try to hit counterbalance counter spells with basically using Glarb to manipulate the top, like I said. Force of Negation, this is, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay its mana cost, and it is 1 colorless and 2 blue, and you may counter target non-creature spell, and if that spell was to be countered this way, you may exile it, and it gets exiled instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So this is a free counter spell. Whenever people are trying to interact with Glarb, any of our combo pieces will just force a negation. Into the Flood Maw, this is a 1 mana bounce spell. Cooling Writ, this is going to be 4 mana to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, and you can add a black and or a green for each permanent destroyed this way. This is both mana acceleration and a board wipe. Mental Misstep, counter spell. Misdirection, another free counter spell. Flusterstorm, counter target instant or sorcery unless its controller pays 1 with Storm. So this is going to be able to essentially storm itself off, counter the same spell multiple times, and make the opponent have to pay the 1 multiple times, which they won't do. Flusterstorm is a great spell to add on to the stack whenever a lot of people have casted spells on the stack, because when you cast it, you copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. Not just spells that you've cast, but spells that are just on the stack in general. Flusterstorm is able to counter a lot of those. And last but not least, Fierce Guardianship. If you control a commander, you can cast a spell without paying its mana cost, and you can counter target non-creature spell. I suggest keeping up a Fierce Guardianship or Flusterstorm or any counter magic for when you're trying to go off with Glarb so that you're able to protect the combo. These are some other win conditions. Go through these really quickly. Nexus of Fate, you could take an extra turn, and if it put in the graveyard, you can reveal it, shuffle it into its owner's library. Tainted Pact, this is basically you name a card, and then you remove the top card of your library from the game, and then you may put that card into your hand unless it has the same name as another card removed this way. Repeat this process until you put a card in your hand, or you remove 2 cards with the same name, whichever comes first. This is Commander, so you will never have 2 cards with the same name. This card basically just exiles your whole library. And when you cast this with Thassa's Oracles, enter the battlefield effect on the stack, you could win the game because you will exile your whole library. Thassa's Oracle will enter the battlefield, and then you will win off of that. So this is just another win con. Jace, if you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card. And you can also -8 to draw 7 cards. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. This is going to be another way we could win the game off of Doomsday with Jace. If our Thassa's Oracle somehow is just binned or gets exiled, we just don't have it, we can use Jace as a second win condition by playing him on the battlefield, protecting him, casting Doomsday, and trying to basically play the same line that we were earlier with all the free spells, the free lands with Glarb off the top of our library, and try to draw a card while we have no library. And Jace is really good to win with that. Speaking of win conditions, this is Mnemonic Betrayal. It's 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black for a sorcery. You exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. You may cast those cards this turn as if it were mana, You may cast those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though if were mana of any type to cast those spells. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remained exiled, you return them to your owner's graveyard. So we'll basically be looking to exile other people's Demonic Consultation, Tainted Pact, Thassa's Oracles, or we could also look for a Praetor's Grasp. That's also a black tutor that searches the opponent's library for stuff. So if an opponent has casted a Praetor's Grasp to get someone else's win condition, we can get their Praetor's Grasp with Mnemonic Betrayal. Although that is kind of expensive, but just an example of using our opponent's cards to grab win conditions. We can grab tutors, we can grab anything that we don't have in our hand that we need to win the game. We can use our opponent's graveyards to do that with Mnemonic Betrayal. Very, very good card in this deck. Another win condition that we could use if we just have a lot of mana and are not really able to get the Doomsday combo off is Emrakul. 13 colorless mana for a 13/13 legendary creature Eldrazi, and he costs 1 colorless less to cast for each card type among cards in our graveyard. We will have a ton of those, at least 3 or 4, so he will cost maybe 10 or 9 mana at most. And when you cast him, you gain control of target opponent during their next turn, and after that turn, they take an extra turn. And it has Flying, Trample, protection from instants. So we can try to take control of someone else's turn, try to take another player out on another player's turn using whatever an opponent may have. This actually should be in the draw/card advantage section. This is Necropotence. It is 3 black for an enchantment, and it skips our draw phase. And whenever you discard a card, you can remove that card from the game. And you can pay 1 life to set aside the top card of your library. You can put that card in your hand at the beginning of your discard phase. So this card is worded very weird. Basically what it does is you're going to pay life and put those amount of cards into your hand at the beginning of the cleanup step, which is when you go to discard cards. If I were to pay 40 life and put 40 cards in the top of my library into my hand, then I go to discard down to 7. Basically, it lets you sculpt the perfect hand. So what we'll be doing with Necropotence is going down and using maybe 20 or 30 life as quick as possible to turbo draw a shit ton of cards. And once we draw a bunch of cards, then we can get, hopefully, Doomsday, any of the piles that we need to get a bunch of interaction, and hopefully win the game from there. So Necropotence is a draw engine, but also going to help us just win the game in general. And Demonic Consultation, speaking of win condition, this is going to pair perfectly with Thassa's Oracle. It says, name a card, remove the top 6 cards of the library from the game, and reveal the next card to all players. If it's the card name, put it into your hand. If not, remove that card from the game and continue revealing the top card of your library and removing it from the game until the named card appears.
So we're going to name a card that's not in our deck. We'll name Pikachu, Charizard, Snorlax, it doesn't matter. We're going to name something that's not in our deck. It's going to remove all the cards from the top of our deck, giving us no library in order to win with Thassa's Oracle. So basically what we're going to do is cast Thassa's Oracle, and when we cast Thassa's, we're going to use 1 black on the top to cast an instant, which is Demonic Consultation, and with that we will win the game. Pretty cool win line there. This is a pretty common win line that most people use, so people are going to see this coming. As soon as you cast Thassa's, they will look to counter the Demonic Consultation, so just watch for that. Now we're going to go into one of the bigger parts of the deck, which is interaction. This deck has a shit ton of interaction to deal with not only the table, but to deal with, you know, anyone trying to deal with your stuff. We already went through that, actually. I have ADHD. Well, now we're going to go through the draw cards. So these are going to be able to draw us cards and get our engine going as quick as possible, because we want to be drawing a lot of cards in Cedh. So speaking of drawing cards in Cedh, the best card engine, Rhystic Study. For 2 colorless and 1 blue, we can have an enchantment that says whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1. So we're going to be making a lot of people pay 1 mana, or we're just going to be drawing a shit ton of cards with Glarb and getting our Doomsday. This is the One Ring. It's a 4 mana artifact that's indestructible, and when it enters, if we cast it, we gain protection from everything until our next turn. And at the beginning of our upkeep, we lose a life for each burden counter on it, and we can tap it to put a burden counter on it, and draw a card for each one on it. And so this is going to be scaling card draw, but also dealing damage to us and giving us protection. This is a very good card. Imperial Seal. This is a tutor, so we're going to search our library for a card, shuffle, and put that card on top. You lose 2 life. This section also has the deck's tutors, because that is also card advantage. Vampiric Tutor, search your library for a card, put it on top, lose 2 life. Demonic Tutor, search your library for a card, put it in your hand. Chord of Calling, search your library for a creature with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield. Worldly Tutor, this is going to search for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library, then put that card on top. Sylvan Library, this is a 2 mana enchantment. You could pay 0 to draw 2, then choose any 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those 2 cards, pay 4 life or put that card back on top of your library. Use this ability only once during your draw phase and only once each turn. This is good card filtering and just a classic good card. This is a new one. This is Wan Shi Tong, Librarian. For 2 blue and X, you get a legendary creature, Bird Spirit, with Flash, Flying, and Vigilance. And when it enters, you can put X counters on him, then draw half X cards rounded down. And most importantly, he says whenever an opponent searches the library, we're going to put a counter on him and draw a card. So a lot of the times we can play him for 2 blue, get him out early, and whenever an opponent casts anything that searches their library or they crack a fetch, we'll just go ahead and draw a card off of Wan Shi Tong, and he's just going to keep getting bigger. Mystic Gamora, whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, we're going to draw a card. That player can pay 4 to counter this effect, and it has cumulative upkeep. Basically just means it's going to pay 1. You have to pay 1 after you cast a spell, and then it's going to go up to 2. Then you have to pay 2 the next turn after you paid the 1, and then so on and so forth. So we'll probably pay the first turn, the second turn, and maybe the third. Most likely not pay the 3rd turn, but just to get a couple cards off of Mystic Gamora, this card is extremely good. Beseech the Mirror. This is search our library for a card, exile face down, then shuffle. If this spell is bargained, you may cast the exile card without paying its mana cost. If that spell's mana value is 4 or less, put that exile card into your hand if it wasn't cast this way. And so to bargain, we're going to sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as we cast it. So we're going to basically search for Doomsday, cast Doomsday if we can sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token, and be able to cast Doomsday with Beseech the Mirror. This is Invasion of Ikoria. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield, and then if you search your library this way, you shuffle. So this is another creature tutor and another tutor to get Doomsday, which is Mystical Tutor. This is 1 blue to search for an instant or sorcery. So those are the tutors, the interaction and the win conditions. Now all we need to look at is the ramp and some of the just general value cards that we have in the deck, and we shall be done with the deck tech. This is 3 visits, this is ramp, mana vault, fast mana. I'll go quickly through the mana because most people know what a lot of these classic mana cards are. In order to get fast mana for Glarb, to cast Doomsday, to cast our tutors, to cast interaction, we just want to be the first player at the table with as much mana as possible in order to win the game. So this ramp package is extremely strong, and a lot of decks use these common artifacts and fast mana pieces. So lots of ramp. And last but not least, these are going to be the generic good stuff in the deck. Got Noxious Survival. This is going to be sort of recursion in a way to get a card from the graveyard on top of its owner's library. If our Doomsday gets milled, discarded in any way, or we're just not able to, if it gets countered, we can get Noxious Survival to get it back. Seedborn Muse is going to enable combos in a way. It's going to untap all permanents we control during each other player's untap step. Funny thing with Glarb is if we have Glarb tapped and we have Seedborn Muse, every time that it's going to be another player's untap step, we can untap, surveil, continue to surveil each turn, every time it's an opponent's turn with Glarb, and then just get a ton of value. Deathrite. Shaman discards an insanely good ramp piece. We can exile lands from graveyards to get mana. We can exile instants and sorceries from graveyards by paying a black and tapping him to make each opponent lose 2 life, and we can gain life by tapping him and paying a green and exiling a creature card from a graveyard. Again, this works perfect with Glarb, who's always putting cards in the graveyard, dumping cards for Deathrite to be able to get Cabbage Merchant, just an amazing card. 3 mana, 2/2. When an opponent casts a creature, we're going to get a food token. And whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, we have to sacrifice a food token, and we can tap 2 untapped foods to get a mana of any color. Wandering Archaic. Whenever an opponent casts an instant sorcery, they may pay 2. If you don't, you can copy that spell. You may choose new targets. This makes everyone's interaction a lot more expensive, annoying to play, and if they cast a counterspell to deal with anything, they have to pay 2. If you don't, you can just counter their counterspell with copying their whatever they have interaction. Phyrexian Metamorph. This is a clone. We just love clones. High Fae Trickster. This is going to allow us to play cards with Flash, which is very good in combination with one of the other cards that I showed, which is, where is it? Necropotence. You use Necropotence and you're able to play all the cards that you needed to with Flash instead of going to discard them all. So you could pay 20 life into Necropotence, and if you have enough mana, you're able to play all those cards because you have High Fae Trickster and they all have Flash. So when they all have Flash, you're able to play them all and essentially try to win the game with that. Same thing with Valley Floodcaller. Cast non-creature spells as though they had Flash. We get to keep a lot of the cards from Necropotence and actually cast them, but we still have to discard down the hand size. But it's just going to let us cast them as though they had Flash, so instead of discarding them, we can go cast them, and then they'll go to the bin, and we actually get to use them instead of just throwing them away. Another very good card, Orcish Bowmasters, 2 mana, 1/1, enters the battlefield. And whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, is going to deal 1 damage to any target in a Mass Orcs 1 with Flash. Going to be great for dealing with people's 1 toughness creatures, which there are a ton of in Cedh, so you're going to be able to ping Ragavans, ping Yoshis, and be able to flash in at any time, especially when people are drawing cards off of Rhystic Study, or just drawing a lot of cards in general. Orcish is going to be able to ping and do a lot of damage. And last but not least is Clever Impersonator. This is going to enter the battlefield as a copy of a non-land permanent. This is actually good to copy other people's Rhystic Studies to draw a bunch of cards, and that way we can just sort of try to get more draw steps. Or draw more cards, excuse me. Jesus. And that is Glarb in Cedh. So we're going to be casting Doomsday. We're going to be protecting Glarb. We're going to be interacting a lot with the board. And yeah, this little frog has a ton of potential in Cedh. It's a very good deck. And I would say It's very mid-range and turbo, but it can protect itself and bring a lot of wins to a lot of different tables depending on just who your opponents are and if they have enough interaction to deal with you. But that is most decks, but this deck has a lot of value engines going for it, with Glarb being in the command zone, so you're able to craft a lot of perfect hands for yourself with him and try to win the game off of that. So if you want to check out this Sultai commander, I suggest using Glarb Calamity's Augur.